We need more cases. Oh, he's on. Good evening and welcome to a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:01 and the date is May 9, 2017. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are members Ms. Betty Hollow, Ms. Kay Towsley, Ms. Joan Krajnanski, Ms. Lisa Carson, and alternates are Mr. Ed Baum and Aaron Thomas. I'm John Golsey, the chair. Also present are zoning administrator, Mr. Rick Sorois, and secretary, Mr. Paul Eschenbacher. At this time, I invite you to view a pre-recorded video on the rules and procedures of the board.
The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding, summary, or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.03b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code, Section 23.07.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens, aggrieved by a decision of the board, may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the board to the applicant. Thank you.
There are 2 cases on tonight's agenda. Case number 17-01 09V, the property at 97 Columbus Road. And the second one would be the property at 56 West Union Street, case 1710V. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Be seated, please. Our first case, case number 17-09V, 97 Columbus Road. The zone is B3, and Appalachian Renewable Power is the appellant. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 230310 to allow 5 accessory structures on a property where 2 accessory structures are the maximum allowed. Any addition from the code office?
No, just these are 90 panels on 3 structures on this property.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, what I saw in there was like 3 rows of the panels, right?
That's correct.
Is that counted 5 or 3? So what are the other 2 accessories?
There's the actual brewery itself, then he has a building.
Oh,
storage
okay.
building.
Okay. All right, the appellant could come to the podium, please. State your name and your address for the records.
My name is Gary Easton. My address is 10131 Hager Ridge Road in Stewart, Ohio.
Okay.
The unusual circumstances of this particular project, we originally intended to install the system on the roof of the building, and that's how the project was developed, and actually it was awarded a USDA grant with that as the intention. Once we were awarded that grant and moved forward with the engineering of the project, we discovered that the building couldn't carry the additional load of the array. That led us to the other option, which is mounting it on the ground. The accessory structures that are existing are not oriented properly and are not of adequate structure either, so they were out of the running as well. From a standpoint of what's different about this particular property than others in the zone, it's likely that most structures would be able to carry the minimal loading of a solar array. This structure was built as a warehouse and not under different types of conditions. It wasn't occupied, so just its new use has kind of changed the way that it gets evaluated structurally. So I would argue that most buildings would be able to carry the array on the roof. But I also would argue that in general, these arrays contribute to the public good, don't pull down the adjacent property value, and in most estimations aren't an unattractive addition to the property. So I guess I'd be happy to address any questions specifically. That's my basic argument, but.
So when did you put the poles in there? I mean, they're already in the ground.
Right. I put the poles in once we had initially, we got our commercial permits through the state, and then I applied for my zoning permit and initially was asked about the setbacks, and so I jumped the gun once I demonstrated that we had proper setbacks. I thought that was the only stumbling block we were going to run into. Cameron had been patient. The development of the project through the USDA grant was incredibly time consuming, and it was just, I jumped the gun, on that part of it. And so I don't argue that as part of my consideration that we had construction already underway. My arguments are based more just on the general use of the property. Cameron's mission statement includes, an effort to try and be a good steward to not only the community, but to the planet, and so this is going to allow him to produce a significant amount of the electricity that he's using there, from a renewable source. So,
okay.
I have a question about the letter
Sure.
from Accorda Nemeth Engineering Incorporated.
Yes, ma'am.
Which says, based on my evaluation, I determined that the racking system and foundation can safely carry the required design loads from the solar
This,
panels.
that's referring specifically to the structure that we went with, the ground-mounted structure. They didn't prepare a letter like that for me rejecting the building. They just did their structural evaluation and you know, decided that we could go no further on the augmentations to the building would be impractical. So that letter is referring, that letter is specific to the racking system so that I could get state approval, and that's to demonstrate the structural sufficiency of the structure that would be in place there, the ground-mounted structure.
Okay, all right.
Are you expecting to get enough power to, how many percentage of the power usage you're going to get out of
This
this?
is over 30% of the power used at the brewery.
Okay. So 70% you're still relying on the regular power?
Sure.
Okay. Any, that to me sounds like, you know, the payoff would be quite a bit for all the expenses that you put in this, unless you had this grant.
Well, you're looking at less than 10 years, about a 7-year payback
Yeah.
with the accelerated depreciation, the USDA grant, there's a tax credit available. So the finance or the economics of it are pretty attractive.
Yeah.
Now, he would have liked to have gone, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out how the height of these at the highest point, it looks like they would be
10 feet?
9 feet, 10 feet, almost 11 feet.
At the
when they're
tallest
at full
point.
tilt.
At the back point, yes, ma'am.
Right, okay.
And 64 feet long.
Right.
Right. And they are oriented in the, if you're familiar with the lot, there is a lane, then there's a parking lot there in the areas between.
In the grass strips in between.
In the grass strips between, which will be later landscaped with, you know, a decorative gravel to match the brewery.
I see. And that's all steeped, if I remember
It is.
correctly.
It is.
Is that what the plastics were on the ground?
That's landscape fabric,
Okay,
yes.
okay. And are they fixed or are they going to be moving with the sun?
No, they're fixed. The
Okay.
system is locked in place at a 20-degree angle.
Any other questions for the appellant?
Is this just gonna be a structure, or would it be anything underneath it? Like, can you put anything underneath? Would it just be?
No, it's open. It's
Similar
wide
to
open
what's
the
at
air.
the community center?
Similar,
setup.
yeah, that's a
Okay.
larger, obviously much larger and
Right,
higher, but yes.
But similar idea?
Yes, similar idea. A smaller, in fact, I did bring a small depiction. This isn't exactly like what we're doing. This is a 3-module orientation. So this is identical to what we would have. This is just a different portrayal with 4 and slightly higher, as you can see. So.
I have a question. If the land were configured differently such that you could put all 3 next to each other,
Sure.
it would be considered one accessory structure?
That's
If-
not
If the
defined.
land allowed, it could be all in one area, absolutely, yes. Yeah, it's a kind of a
No?
tricky
No?
lot.
No,
Why is that?
3 separate structures.
Well, it is as it's currently configured.
Because the mounting will be the way that it is, it'll be identified as 3 separate structures.
Yes, but my
you-
question was if the land were long, it could be configured to be one.
One
I-
long
it
piece
can't
is what
be.
she
It
said.
can't be
Yeah.
because of the property, because
Right.
of telephone.
If you do one long section, but if
Yes.
you have 3 individuals
Yes.
in a square,
No,
then it would
yeah.
be 3 separate
Yeah.
structures.
Right, if there weren't, there's some power poles,
Right.
there are all sorts of different things that allow, or they're required of being broken.
Right, so there's nothing about the size of it that
No.
is an issue with code.
In fact, it would have fit nicely on the roof, and no one would have seen it up there at all, but.
Right.
What is the challenge of maybe enforcing the roof so that you can put them on the roof?
The structural reinforcements that they would have recommended were impractical. It would have required basically redesigning the structure of the roof. That they wanted additional girders additional flanges welded on the girders, and then additional purlins. And the entire structure is occupied. There's conduit and mechanicals run in all those spaces already. So it would basically be dismantling the brewery, augmenting the roof system, and then reinstalling the brewery.
Okay, you may be seated now,
Thank
and
you,
we
sir.
may call you back again. I had a question from the code office. It's, to me, always an accessory structure was like a building or something, but now if I just want to put one of those old 40-foot antennas in my yard, is that called accessory?
You have to remember now, all buildings are structures, but not all structures are buildings by
Okay.
by definition. And you're absolutely correct. But that's Title 43. If you're going to put an antenna up or a tower up, that's totally separate from there. We are specifically speaking about a structure or this type of accessory. So if you read by definition, I printed it off here, anything constructed or erected, the use of which requires a location on the ground or attachment to something having a fixed location on the ground. Okay? So yes, you could consider a tower a structure. But again, we have Title 43 that addresses
Okay.
that.
So if I have a garden, put fence around it, that's,
If you have what?
if I have a garden and put fence around it, that would be
That's fencing.
accessory
That's
That's
fencing.
fencing.
That's
Okay.
fencing. It's not a structure. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, so is a structure at the rec center considered an accessory structure?
What, the solar panels they've put on?
Right.
Yes, in
Sure.
my
So-
view, it would be, yes.
And each row is then a structure, right?
That's correct.
And they're all
They're
connected.
together.
So it's 3 structures.
So that's 3 structures. That's correct.
Yeah, I was looking up of course, there's a definition for accessory buildings in Title 23, and that was what I was using
Yeah.
as a definition. And I was just querying the first comment, a building, the use of which is incidental to that of the main buildings, whereas this wouldn't be, because this is almost like a power meter, right?
Correct.
Okay. But then it says, and which is not intended to be used as a dwelling, I guess that would be the catch-all.
That's right.
So okay.
Because you all are not going to use it for parking, like in the
No,
picture or anything? It's just,
No, the structure is not tall enough for that,
Okay,
first of all,
okay.
and the angle of it and its
Right.
location
Okay.
is fixed as such. That's the only capacity in the capacity that will be affected.
Well, this picture they have, there's a car
well,
sitting
it was
under
the
it.
picture was an example. That's why,
Well,
that's the
just
reason why I
an
questioned
example.
it.
That's,
Right.
Right.
yeah, no, that's, sometimes, no.
Okay, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request? Will be heard now. No. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment or opposition will be heard now. Okay. I assume we don't have anything more to add, right?
Not unless there's any more questions.
Okay. All right, folks, we have a motion on the table, or we need to make a motion.
Yeah, but I think what I'd like to
Discuss?
add,
Okay.
yeah, to the motion is, and I think we did this over at on East State Street, is to clarify what these 3 accessory buildings are for, their use, so that they don't be turned into some other type of accessory building, because we're only approving under Title 23 or 310 to allow these 3 additional accessory.
They can't be closed in, is what you're saying.
Well, no, but if the property would pass on and someone in this piece of property is granted a blank 5 accessory
yeah.
structures, then if those solar panels were taken down, then someone could build other other types of structures. And so I just want to clarify when we read this that
I
the
think
5
the code office usually will take care of, because they have to go back to them again.
Yeah, but we need to say that.
Yeah.
We need to say that because the
Put solar
code's
panels.
busy. Yeah, just say to allow 5 accessory structures, 3 of which, it is 3,
Solar
correct?
panels.
3 of which will be, what do they call them? Solar array solar arrays.
Okay.
And I think that would just cover it, and so then in the future,
So they won't have two
Right.
other buildings.
right.
Okay. Any other discussions before someone makes a motion? We want to make the motion and add
I could do that.
that statement?
I move that the board approve case number 1709V, 97 Columbus Road, Appalachian Renewable Power, the appellant, requesting a variance from ACC 230310 to allow for 5 accessory structures, 3 of which will be solar arrays on a property where 2 accessory structures are the maximum allowed. Does that wording work?
That's fine.
Okay.
Second?
Lisa, second. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to this property in question or the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. I don't know how to interpret that because this is not with respect to the property. What kind of exceptional circumstances is there here?
Well, what they're requesting cannot be built in the appropriate manner on the roof where most solar panels are applied. And so then ground space is available, and that's what they're requesting.
Any other comments?
I agree.
Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Again, as you said,
Same.
the roof may be there, being able not to. Preservation of equal property rights. Now I can see now the rows and rows of solar panels on Columbus Road. Okay. Minimum variance.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
You're allowed 2 and you can have 3 now in addition, so you have a total
Well,
of
I
5.
think, yeah, because solar power is, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this. And we might as well accept that we're going to be looking at it.
Okay, so this doesn't set a precedent in your mind of any sort, because if we do this again, it'll have to be solar panels.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, considering that this is only providing 30% of the electricity,
Yeah.
and assuming we have a good day and sunny day and everything, then to make it, somebody wants to make it more, this, for the 30%, I don't think it's minimal, but just as a part of the argument.
Well, there's already two accessory buildings on the property,
Which are allowed.
which are allowed.
Yeah.
And
So
I-
to me, the minimum would have been to build just one.
Just
As
one.
Kay was,
Make it one large panel.
make it one large panel, but then we have circumstances.
Yeah, and then you're just playing games. Is it one long one or?
Yeah, it's for one use, right? So whether it's divided into 3 parts or in one, it makes no difference to
Yeah, but
anybody.
according to the code, it is 3 items. So the use, we're not talking use here,
It's 3 items that are identical.
Right, it could, and the space can only be used for this purpose.
Well, I think maybe we should go back to the first item, the exceptional circumstance, and say that it might be preferable to have 1 additional thing so that you would have 3. However, the land is not
Right, I was
situated,
thinking that.
the shape or topography is not conducive to having the 1. That would suit me better.
Why
Yes.
would that be better?
Why?
Because the code says you can have 2, and they're
But
asking
the code isn't
5.
talking about solar panels.
I don't think it
No,
makes
they're
any
talking about
difference.
accessory structures,
Yeah.
and that's what we're talking about, is accessory
I
structures.
think I understand that.
Okay.
This is,
But I agree with Betty. I think you're right. As I was saying this, it dawned on me that exceptional circumstances, the lay of the land, and therefore the one structure has to be split up into three.
Mr. Baum?
So it would, yes.
This is another one of those cases where technology has surpassed our code.
Right.
And we're then having
Yes.
to sort of fit it in some way. And I think we're sort of stretching the interpretation in order to do it.
I think that's true.
We have to realize that there are exceptions, and this may be one of them.
True, if they
This is
wanted
gonna
to
become
build pig
common.
pens, we would probably
Yeah,
say
it's going to
no.
be quite common.
This is going to become a real common issue
Yeah.
over the next few years as it become more affordable and as more grants are rolled out, especially in an area that wants renewable energy.
Well, the other minimum part is these three structures will be located on pieces of the property that are not usable.
Yeah.
And so rather than taking up parking spaces or eliminating part of the brewing operation back in those other two accessory buildings,
And the structures solely are for the solar arrays, Steve.
Correct.
So-
Right.
So they're not using it for parking or anything else, so it's not an issue with parking. At least not this time.
Absence of detriment.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Not of a general nature, I guess the code should at some point address solar panels in more.
Well, I don't know. I think it's good that they still stay as an accessory structure, and we can clarify them because, people could put them up in some pretty odd places, and maybe that would be detrimental. So,
Okay, are we ready to vote? All in favor of this request, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. All opposed? 2.
I guess.
So you have the variance for 3 to 2, and then you can maybe discuss them with the code office for the follow-up. All right, let's go to the second. I'm sorry, I lost my paper.
oh, they're right there.
No?
You sure?
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Case number 2 is case 1710V, the property at 56 West Union Street, Zone R3. Carol Alt, and for Dogwood Rental Properties, LLC, is the appellant. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23-1001, Table A, a schedule of bulk controls to allow the reconstruction of a building with a 17 feet 10 inches front setback where 25 feet is the minimum requirement, and to allow the reconstruction of a duplex on a lot with 6,665 square feet, where 7,000 square feet is the minimum requirement. And from ACC 23-1001, Table B, Office Street parking requirements to allow the reconstruction of the building with 0 parking space, where 7 parking spaces are the minimum requirement. This I can prove the special circumstances for this property.
I agree. And if you don't mind, I have a statement that I'd like to make as a public remark here from Andy Stone, the city engineer, on behalf.
Sure.
I may read, I do believe you have copies in front of you, but for reporting, it's from Andy Stone, the city engineer. It's the letter about 56 West Union Street, and it's considered a drainage. Carol Alt contacted my department about an upcoming case she has before the BZA. We reviewed a private storm drain issue at the northwest side of this existing structure. Bill Thurman, the contractor for Vicentine Carroll's contractor, proposes to construct new drains for the structure that hugs the northwestern property boundary and connect to the storm system on West Union Street by going under the existing retaining wall. I have not independently verified the existence of a storm line on that side of West Union, assuming Mr. Thurman has found it and it exists. I agree with Ms. Alt that this is the most direct route for a private storm drainage on the northwest side of her property due to topography. A new line in that area may also help with slope stability on the adjacent property, as owners have experienced slips in this area in the past. Thank you, Andy Stone, City Engineer and Director of Public Works.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any questions for the code office? Would the appellant please come to the podium, state your name and your address for the records?
I do have a quick question for the
Sure,
code office.
you can just go in there.
You can go ahead.
In terms of, so because we're doing some reconstruction here, they're losing whatever grandfathers they had, correct? So my question is, what was the structure that's on it today with that small addition that's going to be taken down and replaced? What was the square foot, in terms of the square footage that we're looking at now, 6,665 to 7,000 square feet being the minimum, will it have the identical footprint? The new one will have
Yes.
identical footprint of the old one?
That's correct. From what I
Okay.
understand, that's the way it's supposed to be, yes.
Okay. So that would not be a change. And then,
But it would be, because the code says if you're non-conforming,
right,
you cannot alter, substitute, blah, 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 which includes tearing down and rebuilding.
right, correct.
So essentially, they would lose the grandfathering.
Right.
Right,
And-
which is why it's here.
Yes,
Right.
exactly, although we haven't really talked about that as an issue,
I think what
which
she
we
wanted
have
to know,
recently in other cases.
I think what she wanted to know was it like 5,000 right now? They're going to go to 6,665, but it's not. It's the same footprint
Yes,
as
I
before.
understand
Right.
that, yes.
It's the size of the lot, it's not going to change.
Well, no, it's the size of the building that I'm
No,
asking. I just
think
want to
the
make
issue
sure.
that I'm considering is the parking issue.
Right.
So if you're grandfathered for no parking and you do this reconstruction, which is a change, then you would lose the grandfathering on that parking.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think,
Thanks,
that's the lot size, not the building size, 6,665, yeah,
Right.
okay. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, you
Okay,
did
so-
mention your name and address,
I
right?
realize this is like a difficult thing to absorb.
Bill,
Did-
your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill Turman, I own a business called Sea Tide. I live on Redford Road, 7474 Redford Road, Athens.
Okay, great.
Okay. So, Carol and I have been looking into this for a couple of years now because she's got a foundation issue in the primary structure of the house, which is an old foundation. And our problem is that we need to remove at least a portion of that existing structure that's on the side of it in order to reach in and kind of jack up the house to shore up and replace the foundation underneath. 3 sides of the house. It'll be the back of this, and I could show it to you if it's necessary, but there's 3 sides of the house that the foundation is kind of collapsed. There's really no other way to get into that side of the house without going through the house. Now, we could take out the front of the house and take out the side of the house and leave the back of the house there, and the foundation's there. We already know we can do that. Basically putting it back the same place it was, but leaving 2 walls standing. Then when we get the other ones put back up, we can put the 2 walls back up again. That's going to take a lot more work and cost Carol a lot more money. But our issue with that, the main thing is, if that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes, and we'll follow through with that. But while we're there, obviously the easiest way to do it is pull that structure out of the way and down, jack up the foundation and redo it. And since we have drainage issues coming from that hillside, we have to solve them. So anytime there's any water coming down that hill in High Street, out through the neighbors' backyards or anything, it's seeping into the crawl space of that building. Carol, several years ago, or someone had made an attempt at putting a French drain about 10 feet on the upper side of the hill. But my experience with French drains is, unless the bottom of the French drain and the drain itself is down below the footer and foundation of the house, they're likely not going to do much. The water's going to rush over and the water's going to saturate underneath. And that's the cause here. And that may have been the cause of this foundation, is because of the amount of water buildup on the outside. So there's other issues to this property too, as you can see, is that there's a property that you may have noticed that belongs to Todd Zorn, which is right alongside of it. And it's a concrete and brick structure that occupies Union Street Cafe. And the front right corner of that is in dire straits. And then 10 feet down, you can see that there's some damage to that foundation. None of that I could say is caused by what we're doing here, but at one time, there was a drain that was, directly between those two properties and on the street, there's a storm drain. And at some time, there was an attempt to pick up some storm drainage and pass it through that area there. There's a concrete slab cut up. I think there was a connection made. But further back in the back corner of Todd's property, in the back corner, which is right at this little point that is, if you have a drawing like I have, it's at the very point of Carol's property. There's a couple drains down there that were patched and repaired here recently. So they do exist. And one of the fellows from the city was out the other day and looked at them. So they do exist. But the whole issue here is that we're right on the property line right now. And if we can move back, we can create an 8-foot setback from that side of the property, which I believe there's an 8 and a 12 is pretty much the code in the city of Athens. Not only would that make it easier for us to put this new structure up, but it would be less risk of any damages or anything else, which in an area that's already in dire straits. So, because and we think about fire and safety too, because now you're going to have an 8-foot separation between two buildings where now you have none. So less than 2 feet in some, but there's a point that's right on the property line. So really, yeah, I'd say we're going for the easiest route. We'd like to move the building forward. That would allow us to comply with that. We'd like to move it out of our way so we can fix the foundation. But we're not asking for anything more than what we have already. We just want to put it back. And I think because of the reason that we're all here is probably because of the front setback, which we can't really do much about because the original structure is there unless we tear the whole place down. If we tear the whole place down, we're unlikely to be able to rebuild it because we don't have the parking.
Yeah.
Unless you've seen that hillside, we could get parking in there, but it would probably cost the same amount as the house because it'd have to be a huge retainer wall and just totally impractical. I'm not even sure what it looked like. There's already issues there. So that's I guess what we're asking for is to make it easier on us to do it, and at the same time, we'll be excavating that back area. We'll be looking at the storm drains that are coming from other properties. And right now, the guys that have been back there, the storm drains on this building right now, on the back side of her property, are coming down and then being poured on top of the roof. And there's a little concrete gutter that somebody made on that roof. So the storm water comes off the hill and goes on that roof of Zorn's property. And then it's collected in this concrete makeshift gutter that runs down the whole back of the property and the roof, and then goes into some sort of drain if it makes it there. And that's how that water. So that water really doesn't get from that hillside back to the drain that's right out in the street in front. So I don't know what else I can tell you.
Speaking of the retainer wall, are you going to do anything with it, replace them?
Well, that's not a part of
I was scared
this.
to walk by it.
Yeah, that's not a part of this, but it's under discussion. It's the question. The question right now is who owns the. I'm not applying for a permit to do a retainer wall.
Yeah.
And it's not a part of this job.
Right.
But it's something that that we started the discussion with.
Okay.
And I talked to Ron Lucas about it, he was down. And I think that we have to decide whether it's on the city's property or it's on Carol's property. If it's on Carol's property, then that would mean that our square footage is bigger. You know, if it's on the city property, that means our square footage is smaller. I mean, there's some,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I think that's a separate.
Okay.
I'll tell you one other tricky situation about that is that wall is in bad repair and it's up against Soren's building. So there's going to have to, and I tried to tell Todd to go out there and check on that because that wall definitely will have to come out by somebody, if it's Carol or if it's the city or whoever it is. But that building next door is going to be involved in that when it happens.
I saw some people were working today. What is exactly going on right now?
There was nobody working there today. Instead of the college students, they just filled up the
Maybe
dumpster that was set out
vandalizing.
there.
I saw some people
maybe you
were
thought
looking into that dumpster, and
Oh, yeah, they were
people
probably
down
putting
there.
mattresses in there and other
Okay.
stuff. We put a dumpster there.
So there is no work is being done right now.
Okay, we got a permit to demolish, and we took out, we shored up the basement down below. We jacked up the foundation, the floor joists of the house to stabilize them. We took out some windows and doors in preparation for whatever we'd have to do, but we stopped because at this point, we're either gonna take it down or we're gonna leave two walls standing and take it down that way. And so,
Questions from the board?
Well, I assume that there are 7 tenants in this house. Is that correct?
no,
6. There should be 6.
There are 5 tenants in the house, 1 tenant in the apartment that we propose to demolish and rebuild.
But each unit has to have a minimum of 2 parking spaces, even if it's for
Exactly.
one person.
Exactly.
Oh, that's why 7.
Well, talk to me about the possibility of parking on this lot, particularly if you took down the apartment and didn't put it back.
well, you know, that's always a possibility, but then the cost of the construction is not gonna be offset by the income by that piece of property that you're taking away.
Well, that's the sort of thing that we're not really supposed to consider.
Okay.
Ms. Alt would be considering that, but the
That's right.
board doesn't
May
have
I?
to talk about
Okay.
that.
Not right now.
Why don't you have it turned next?
Okay, but then I might wave that off to her, because she's
Okay,
probably got
but
more input.
if you took it down, would there be some room for parking?
No, absolutely not.
Not anywhere on that lot at all?
No, I think Rick, you'll say there's no room for parking. There's no room for parking. In fact, taking it down is quite the challenge in itself. So it's not,
Again,
it's on the side of a hill like this.
yes, okay.
And the hill goes all the way around the property and to High Street. So it's below High Street, and it's below the properties and businesses or properties behind it.
Well,
So
go ahead.
if you have this place for rental or for whatever it was used before, how was the parking was handled? Where would people park?
I wasn't renting the property, I'm
Wherever
a
they can.
contractor. I'd have to ask Ms. Hall.
Okay, because eventually, you're gonna have occupants in there and they need to have parking. Sometimes you can lease that parking from someone, but we'll ask her when she comes in.
Okay.
I couldn't quite tell where the property line was, so is the wall on the property on High Street, is that stone wall, is that the end of is that the property line?
The stone wall butts up against Zorn's building, which is the Union Street Cafe.
No, I don't mean Union Street, I mean High Street.
On the back side of High Street, there's a telephone pole in the back, and there's a pin there. We had it surveyed.
Okay, I guess I
It
didn't
runs down that
recognize it.
sidewalk. It's actually on the sidewalk of the apartment above it. It's the property line. I mean, we have plenty of, if it was just a setback issue, we would move over and it would be 8 feet, and it would be, what did I say? It was less than 30 feet. It's definitely going to be greater than 30 feet. It's going to be 8 feet or greater on one side, and it'd be greater than 12 feet on the other. We've met those 3, and the one in front we can't control because it's not something we're taking off. That's not the issue. Isn't the setbacks at all.
No, it's not.
The issue is parking.
Yes,
I was
it is.
just trying to determine, because along the side, well, I guess that would be the rear, if the address is Union Street, so the rear of the house,
That's right, that's 30
Right.
feet.
where several trees were cut down, and it's somewhat flat down there, but what it appears is, just because I've experienced this before, that the line of sight when you hit High Street, if you were to come off High Street to park, which would be the only way to have an egress and ingress, would be almost impossible without dumping in loads of dirt to level that out.
Well, you'd have to build a massive retaining wall, and you realize that you have the slope of High Street, which is very steep.
Oh, right,
That'd
that's
be
what I'm saying,
dangerous, like
right.
in the
Yes,
winter, to try
yes.
to
No,
swing
I'm
a car
saying
in
that,
there. Yeah,
right.
Right.
That would be the difficulty, but I was trying to determine how much of that space along the rear actually belonged to the property itself.
More than 30 feet,
Okay,
okay?
yeah, that gives me,
I'm going to ask you the same question again. If the addition were removed, that would create a space behind the house, and you're saying that could not possibly be used for parking
No, I could not possibly be used for parking,
because,
It goes down.
because it's on the bottom of a steep hillside, coming
but
in
the
three
apartment
directions.
is also at the bottom of a steep hillside.
Well, they can walk around front and walk the sidewalk, which is at the same level. You remember High Street comes
Yes, I know.
very steep.
Yes.
So they can walk around here and come in straight in on a sidewalk. It's hard to, I wish I had pictures of that to show you, but I'm sure if you just drove by there.
Yes, I
mean, I
did.
hate for you to do that,
did.
but it's really down. I mean, we had, there's some trees and some that were all, multi-floor rows or whatever was choking it down, and we cleared them out of the way so we could have a good look at the back.
okay.
It's very steep there, and you'd have to go uphill to get from that parking spot that you're trying to achieve. It'd be a straight uphill thing that, to be honest with you, we're questioning whether we're able to take heavy machinery that's on tracks, and we're able to even go up there with tracks to do what we're doing. So trying to get a car in there probably would be totally impractical.
I'm just curious about this, your narrative that you have. You have 3 different pages for each one. And the question is, will denial of the variance deprive the appellant of reasonable use of the land or the building? And you answer no in 2 cases. And the third one, you say, without parking, the land and the building become unusable for commercial and or residential purposes. So you're admitting, you're saying that
I don't
without
think
the
I filled that
parking?
out. Did you fill that out, Carol? I didn't fill that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not the property owner, again, I'm a
Okay,
client.
I'm just curious because you are
I could've
saying
I
that
should've gone
without
second.
parking, this land is not going to be, would be unusable, which we agree.
Yeah.
Okay,
But it has no parking now,
But
and
what-
it's in use.
yeah.
But with the construction, so with the new construction, that will correct long-term issues of the sloping, correct?
Which really don't have anything to do
But-
with us unless they can put parking in.
Right. Okay.
No, what the construction is doing is fortifying the building for use,
Understand that.
otherwise the building's gonna collapse, and then
Right.
we're gonna have a lot.
However, they could repair the building and not build back the apartment.
Oh, I see, so just, right. But, and that would not eliminate the parking situation.
No, it wouldn't, but it would reduce the occupancy, and so the needed parking would therefore be
Occupancy by one.
minimized by 1. Again, you'd still have
Well, did we
no
take
parking.
these considerations when we looked at the block of Union Street between Congress and Court Street? No, we let them have all sorts of off-street parking.
And it's the
So,
same
and I
thing.
think
Well-
it
It's the same
fits
thing.
right into
But
the
there-
same thing.
There
Well,
there was not a situation where there was no parking.
Yeah, there is. There was basically no parking, and we granted them an increase in
Which one are
occupancy.
you talking about?
Several of them.
Okay, you'll have to point that out.
Well, I mean,
It's one of
it's
them.
becoming, it's working its way up Union Street from our last case.
Yes, yes, I
So, I
think.
mean,
and-
we're starting from the brewery, it's gonna continue to be an issue. I mean, I know parking is always a big issue, but most people pay to live closer to an area, as in a metropolitan area like Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati. people pay that extra to live close to where they work, drive, go to school. Most of them don't need cars. But I mean, a lot of the cases coming across, we're looking at structures that, we require parking, but people are willing, most of them are walking. And I understand that, the parking issue is always going to be an issue, but most people, these structures that we're looking at, people are paying that extra money to live close. Most of them are biking or walking. As if I would live in if I moved to Columbus and I live downtown, I'm not looking forward to driving. I'm going to walk and pay that extra. I mean, it's kind of, we're running into issues that, like we just said, we need to grow with time, because that area is slowly developing down Union. It's becoming more housing and less business, and as we work our way all the way down to Schaefer.
This is in an R3 district, so there's nothing wrong with the residents in an R3 district. That's not at issue.
But we do try and find, and we have made exceptions and allowed people to have secure off-site parking, even at a distance beyond 250 feet. I think...
Which we did last
Which
month.
we've done that, or within 250 feet, and I think it's important to first try and secure some off-site parking whenever possible, because we can't continuously keep allowing no facilities for parking, or there's going to be no place to park when we want to visit uptown or
Okay, folks,
parking garage, et cetera, et cetera.
let's hear from her. You may be seated for now, and
Okay.
you can come back if you have anything to add. And please come to the podium, state your name and your address. And also tell us if you have any plans for parking in any way for the future.
Okay. I'm Carol Alt. I live at 13 Strouts Run Road, Athens. Okay, so what we are requesting is not a change in usage or a change in size from anything that we have now. What we are requesting is to be allowed to remove that apartment and put it back up so that we can make an effective repair to the foundation and deal with all those drainage issues. Yes, we can go ahead and effect those repairs without totally tearing it down, but it's going to be much more expensive. We're going to have to bring heavy equipment in 2 different times, maybe 3, as opposed to getting in and doing it all at once. Okay. I have no plans for parking. As Bill has said, the lot itself will not, even if we tear down the apartment and don't build it back up, the lot itself does not allow for safe parking, nor does it have adequate space for individual parking spaces. As I understand, we're not allowed to even consider staff parking anymore.
Actually, you're wrong.
Is that wrong?
In some circumstances, I think.
Okay, well then that's my misunderstanding, but I don't know how we could feasibly and safely, especially in inclement weather, get cars in and out of that parking lot. My tenants currently, some have cars, some don't. Those who have cars generally rent from the fairgrounds, and they ride their bicycles back and forth. When they need their car, they ride their bicycle down to the fairground and back. There's not a parking lot, to my knowledge, where I can rent adequate parking, those 7 spaces, within 250 feet. And you said, okay, well, maybe we could exclude that difference. Well, then
What about
the fairgrounds
Depot
is there.
Is on at the corner of Depot Street, and is there parking available there? Depot Street and Union?
They used to, you're talking about in front of the old train station?
Correct.
They used to rent parking. I have not seen anybody parked there for years. I do not believe they still rent parking. I can't answer that for sure, but I've not seen it used for parking in years. That would be the closest lot.
Right, that would be very convenient.
Yeah.
I just want to say that we fully understand that you're trying to make the property better and fix it and not changing anymore, but the code says anytime you are doing any major changes, even if you try to fix the present structure, you may have to comply with the new code, with the, to comply,
I
to
understand.
come to the
That's
code.
why
Yeah,
we're
that's
here.
why we are here, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, would you at all consider delaying a decision until you can look into renting a few off-site parking spaces? Since that doesn't
What do you
seem-
mean about looking into, you mean, I can certainly rent off-site parking spaces down at the fairgrounds.
Well, it would be nice if it were closer than the fairgrounds.
I guess I would be asking where that might be.
Well, I'm
I could look
suggesting
into
that
it, yes.
you might look into
But we
that.
are under time constraints here because we need to get this job done before the middle or end of August. And so to postpone that for yet another month, I've lost a month. I'm not going to be able to complete the project in a timely manner.
But again, according to the statement that you just wrote in here, you are aware, this is your own statement, that says without parking, the land and building become unusable for commercial and/or residential purposes.
No, what I'm saying is if, let me think
Right,
about
that
this.
is correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't use my property if you require me to put in parking. I can't.
You are using it now.
And I am not, I am grandfathered for not
Exactly.
having parking, yes.
Right, so the building, as long as it has the grandfathering, can be used.
Exactly.
So you're asking us to relieve your burden instead of you taking it on yourself. And I know we're talking about money that would cost more to do the repairs a different way. But that's not necessarily our concern.
I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, so my question would be, and code might want to respond to this also, if you merely took down that small rear building, which is the building that you requesting to be taken down and then moved to another location. If you merely took that down and then worked on the drainage, would that be enough change so that the grandfather would be, that we would still be hearing this case?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question,
So
but
is it the replacement of the building that's causing the request for a variance? Or just taking down that building?
they're taking it down altogether.
Right.
In order to access it, yes.
But
this is
they're
the cost for
rebuilding
this.
it. Their
But
proposal
if
is.
they
When they're
did
going
not
to rebuild
rebuild
it.
it, would they still need to come before the board for a variance?
They're changing the use of the building.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Well, they're not really changing the use. It would still be a
They're
rental
reducing the occupancy.
Occupancy.
But they would be
of it.
reducing the occupancy.
Say losing the apartment.
That
By-
wouldn't trigger the grandfather, would it?
Yes, probably.
Probably.
The grandfathers for what you have now existing.
The apartment and the,
Okay.
and the five.
And the primary structure in the apartment, attached apartment. Yeah.
So 7 parking was based on 7 occupants?
Six.
Six.
Okay.
Six.
Well, she hasn't really offered to reduce occupancy, but it seems strange if occupancy were reduced, that would trigger the grandfather. I mean,
You're changing the building.
yeah,
The grandfathering is for the building, which includes this attachment.
right.
But the purpose for the change
Go
is
ahead.
for the drainage issue, correct?
And the
For the-
foundation
For the
issue.
foundation
Foundation
issue.
is-
Foundation is primary.
collapsing on the backside.
Yeah.
Paul-
The foundation of the
Paul
house
may
is
have
going.
something
We
additional.
have had a case in the past where somebody remodeled their apartment buildings to have fewer units, but the same number of tenants. And that had to get a variance to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says under
So any
non,
change, even if it reduces, it just says changed. It doesn't give an exception of reduction in number of units, reduction in number of tenants. It says
Right.
change.
Yeah.
non-conforming use if no structural alterations, and this is a structural alteration, so, so that wouldn't make any difference.
No.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned myself, I would be comfortable if you could maybe find some parking down the road. Otherwise, I think that is a really nice lot, by the way, even though it's kind of unusual and a nice building on it. It could be some good addition to the neighborhood, I think. But parking, again, needs to be addressed.
Could we put in the variance that 7 parking spaces need to be reserved, if that's how many we have to
Well,
reserve?
that's what Betty was trying to find
Well, I
out.
don't
If
think we're
you-
going to approve this until she can show us that she has something in mind.
Well, if you put them as a condition.
If we put as a condition, even the fairgrounds, I mean, you can hop on a bus and get down to the fairgrounds, or
Yeah.
take your bicycle and get to
How
the
long
fairgrounds.
have you used the fairgrounds for? How long has the fairgrounds been in use for your tenants?
You cannot deed restrict the fairground parking.
No.
No,
We don't
no,
need
we
that.
have to do a variance. We've done it before,
For fairground parking?
yes.
No, I don't remember
But
that.
it's cider house building, not for residents, yes, for residents, yeah. For
Maybe
the-
we should go through the findings unless you have more questions for Ms. Hall.
I have no more questions.
Do you have questions?
I just need clarification in my mind, I guess, from code. If we deny this, but they want to go ahead and do the repair, what would they do? They would do it in stages?
They wouldn't completely tear down the addition. They would leave the majority of it, over 50% up at all times, and then they'd be allowed to do the repair. They don't want to do it because it's more difficult physically and financially.
Right, so their intention is to get the repair done one way or another.
Yes.
And we can't really, in my mind, we can't really force them to correct some of the parking issues, since they have a Plan B that will let them, pretty much end up where they are right now, just at greater expense.
It seems that if we require them to do it in pieces in order to stay within the code, and they can do that, and it's more time-consuming and costly, and they can do exactly the same thing at one fell swoop, why don't we let them do one fell swoop?
That's what
Yeah,
I'm,
you know, it's a foundation issue, and they're trying to correct it. But while they correct it, they're fixing another issue, which is the drainage issue. It's going to be a building there. If we ground it, yes or no, either either going to do it the long way or the fast way. It's still going to be a building there, and it's, I think the biggest concern should not be the parking; it should be the foundation of where the building sits.
But the
People are
code,
living there.
the code doesn't really deal with foundations.
Right.
We deal with
Yeah,
some
but
other issues,
I
including
understand the
parking.
code, but I mean, in just real life situation, it's a foundation issue. So if
But
the house slide down
parking
the
is a
hill,
foundation
Right.
for rental units in this
Right.
town, and
Which is-
it's important.
yes, I understand that. We go over this every single meeting. It's important, and this stuff is outdated. And I mention this every single meeting.
It is outdated, but
Is it?
when we didn't have this, we had certain problems in certain neighborhoods of a lot of storage parking, a lot of residents were unable to park on their streets
Yeah, I
because,
understand
you know,
that. I understand. I
the
mean,
overflow.
you're gonna get that when you get 10,000 people coming to an area 9 months out the year. I mean,
20,000.
20,000. There you go. 10,000 driving, 10,000 get cars.
Well, probably
Because
more than
freshmen and
that.
sophomores not allowed to have
Okay, let's
cars.
kind of stay on the
campus.
topic.
On campus.
Well, so some people want to offer them relief from triggering the parking thing by letting them go ahead and do it in the way they wish to do it, right?
Yes.
And that would be less expensive and time-consuming for them. Is it possible to compromise by asking them to go, I mean, as Betty did, is there a way of their looking into parking within the next month or whatever? Or is that already too long? You know, so that they could arrange for the parking and then get the variance, or is 1 month too long?
If I
It's
may,
not too long for me,
Yeah.
but it's
1 month
myself.
is going to be too long for the project.
And you
Well-
would prefer even going about it in the more expensive, difficult way to waiting a month and
Because
trying to
then I
find
can
parking?
get that project completed,
Okay.
correct? And again, it's not because I'm averse to trying to seek out
Right.
parking. This is just a time constraint.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay.
So the other, and I know we've done this before, I don't always enjoy doing this, but the other option in between the two that you mentioned, Lisa, is to put in the variance that 7 spaces, parking spaces, will be rented from the fairgrounds, giving them a variance for the 250 feet. If that is where the tenants with cars are already parking, and if the appellant went down, tomorrow and got those, then code could,
And they can't be deed restricted, as you pointed out yourself. I think.
right, so we have, that's another variance, right?
It seems to me that the burden is being put on us rather than the burden being put on the applicant. And I think our trying to figure out some way
Solve
for
the
this to
problem.
happen
Right.
is partially our job, but it's also partially the job of the applicant. And she's already said that she had rather spend more money and keep the grandfathering than to seek parking, and if that's her choice.
No,
so be
not
it.
to seek parking.
Well, you said you didn't want to take a month.
To take a month.
The extra month
come
is
back,
what I'm
yeah.
against.
Okay.
That's what I'm against.
The
I'm
month to come
totally
back,
willing
yeah.
to seek the
Okay.
parking.
All right.
Well,
Okay.
it looks like you are short of time. A month is a lot of time. What if we deny the variance? Then what the option do you have?
She can
My
spend
option
money.
is to spend a ton more money and have a much harder project.
Okay.
And it will actually be maybe less successful at containing and doing the runoff and drainage work.
So we
Okay.
won't have achieved anything other, in my view, other than make it very difficult for them.
So, would it be fair to say that you didn't fully understand the parking, that you didn't know that that would be what we would be talking about tonight?
No, I made a
did.
thing. I knew that you would be talking about those 3 variances.
Okay, but you didn't know that you could look into the possibility of getting.
That just, no,
Yeah.
totally didn't even think of it. Have I really thought about that, I could have nipped that one in the bud.
Yeah.
But, and again, we're not asking for, I understand that the code says, I get that. We're not making any changes in usage from what has previously been grandfathered.
What if we add to the motion that you should provide 6, 7, whatever parking that they might decide somewhere else, be a part of the variance?
If that is something you can do, I'm very willing to reserve parking. I would also like to say that, you know, if I have 6 tenants there, that I understand code needs 2 for that apartment, but if I have 6 tenants and only 3 of them have cars, that means I'm paying 4 spaces that are never going to be used.
Well,
But,
we will
yeah.
determine the number.
okay.
Would that be better? Just make it a part of the,
Well, that's a
Motion.
possibility. I don't know if everybody's willing to support that, and I know that parking is a problem.
Well, it might get more support than not, having it in there.
And she's willing to do it, so
Well, so,
the motion would read as, that they have to provide someone, maybe we'll discuss the number.
Maybe we should, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Go
we'll
ahead.
discuss the number, and then they have to comply then. Betty?
No, nothing.
I'm not really sure. I find it really, I'm not sure, John.
Okay.
Let me make two comments here, and I'll repeat sort of what I already said. We can force them to do it over a period of time. They don't have to come back to us at all. Or we can allow them to go ahead and do it in the most efficient method possible. That's my first comment. The second comment is, and this is something I just don't know, I know the Fair Board sells parking spots to individuals. I don't know if they sell parking spots to businesses. And I was on council when we established the agreement with the Fair Board, but I know it's changed because one of the original agreements was that they were going to put in semi-paving in the lot, which they never have. So I don't know what the status is there.
Well, I guess my question is efficiency for who?
For them and for us, it gets it done.
Okay, but in terms of the code and our purpose here,
Our purpose here is to get done what needs to be done. And if they tell us they can do it without coming to us, but it will cost them more money, they might not be able to rent as expeditious as they want, that's a burden on them that we don't need to put on them, simply to maintain the letter of the code.
Well, I guess I disagree with that.
I know, we have different perspectives here.
Yes, we do, we do.
You might be seated, and then we don't have anyone to speak on behalf or opposition. Would you like to add something more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
I assume in favor of the,
I just want to talk. No, I want to reemphasize the safety concern as well, and the access to that 8 foot that you would benefit from. And that's a benefit for all, because that puts that building 8 feet away from the building adjacent to it. And that makes it accessible to not only people that are doing construction there, but in the future, if there's a need, God forbid, not a fire or something like that, but somebody could actually get around the house. And there's a foundation issue over there that you're not going to have accessibility to. Because if she puts the foundation back where it is now, then there's not going to be any possibility of trying to get that, if you know what I mean. I mean, we're going to put the structure back where it was. But I'm just making sure that that's part of the emphasis on it. Because I see that as a huge concern to everybody myself.
by the way, safety is another issue that we
Yeah,
don't
no, you don't
consider.
have to go with that.
Well, to some extent we do.
Yeah, we do, but we're
do.
not supposed to.
It's part of the code.
Okay, we're going to close the discussion from the floor. And Mr. Baum?
I'm not a voting member, I
Well,
can't
you
do
can
it.
discuss.
Oh,
Well, suppose we go through the findings
Well,
and
can I
discuss
ask
this
another
with
We
question?
need to make a motion first.
Oh, we do. Can we have discussion before we make a motion?
yes.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
So I guess what I'm wondering is are we here to say, I mean, will sound exaggerated and like a caricature, but are we sort of waiting for properties to crumble so that we can leap on them and say, your grandfathering is gone, now you have to jump through all these hoops? Because properties are going to crumble. They're old properties, and they're in these weird little lots, and they've been there forever and ever, and they've had this grandfathering. And I guess I'm asking, is it the job of the city or us as representatives of whatever it is we represent, the code protectors, to sort of, I mean, I guess it seems like we're kind of penalizing people for owning old properties.
No, we are not doing that. We are saying that, why don't you, if you want to redo it, bring it to the code, have your parking. Take care of the sidebacks, and if there's some minor issues, then bring it to us, and we may or may not give the variance, but we are not in here to crumble all the buildings.
No,
I'm
we're
just
talking
saying
about the
that
buildings
we're waiting for the
crumbling.
buildings to crumble so that
Yeah.
we can then say, your grandfather is
No,
gone.
we're not. No, we're not at all.
It kind of feels
But
like that to me,
it's
but.
not very frequent that we get a case where a residence is being used as a rental and has tenants, which has 0 parking, and no effort has been made to secure any parking off-site, which I think we would be interested in seeing happen. And if you just say, as Aaron does, oh, the code is outdated, well, I don't think that solves all of our problems either. So I think if you say this person has the privilege over a long period of time of having no parking, where we have required practically everybody else who comes to us who doesn't have enough parking to either get some off-site or try to come more into compliance or something. Here's a case where there doesn't seem to be much energy expended in trying to come at least somewhat into compliance on the parking. So for me, that's an issue.
That's very well put. I just wonder, it just seems as though there are people, we're so familiar with these issues, and it seems like there's a lot of landlords out there and so on that aren't as aware of what they're being expected to do.
I think most of them who have a number of properties are pretty aware.
Right, the big landholders perhaps.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if there are other people that just don't know that they're expected to go find, deed restricted parking or whatever.
Well,
I don't know.
And some people probably don't, and probably may know it, may not know it, whatever. But in this case, as I say, Ms. Alt has had the privilege of renting without any parking, and now there is a trigger that says, can you get some?
Yeah, she learned that tonight though, right? I mean, I think she came in here thinking, I'm asking for nothing that I don't already have.
Right.
And I suspect that she wasn't, lazily, in her hammock thinking, I'm not going to go look for parking. She didn't know that she should be looking for parking. She just thought,
I'm
well.
not convinced of that, but whatever.
Well, I mean, the project is needed, and it's going to happen. Either they're going to do 50% or they're going to do 99% of the tear down. And if we say no, they just do 50%, and the place still stay grandfathered in. The repairs are done, 85%, because they probably can't do the full repair of the foundation, which is, once again, like you said, is not our concern.
I
but
think they will do a complete job of the foundation. They will simply have to do it piecemeal. And
So
again,
Aaron, sorry to interrupt, but I think this is, we feel that in a way, making her jump through these hoops and pay all this money doesn't seem to be in the purpose of the code. But at the same time, ignoring the parking issue and acting as though people don't have an obligation to go find parking, that's also not in the purpose, right? I mean, that's kind of the crux.
well,
Right.
I think that's why we have a code, is to try to deal equally with people and try to bring people as much as possible into compliance if it is possible. And the code, we are told that money is not something of our concern. So it costs them more. That may be your personal concern, but according to the code, that's not an issue for us. So I think we need to go through and see what happens.
Would you like to make a motion?
No, I would not, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, it's your turn.
Yes, all right, let's see. I move to grant a variance to the property at 56 West Union Street from ACC 231001 Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, to allow the reconstruction of a building with a 17 feet 10-inch front setback where 25 feet is the minimum requirement, and to allow the reconstruction of a duplex on a lot with 6,665 square feet where 7,000 square feet is the minimum requirement, and from ACC 231001 Table B, off-street parking requirements, to allow the reconstruction of the building with 0 parking spaces where 7 are the minimum requirement.
Do we have a second?
No, but I would like, I'll make the comment now. I'm not really
You
sure.
can't make a comment until there's a second.
I want to add something to the,
You can, but you can't do it until there's a second. You can't amend a
Okay,
motion
I
that
second.
someone else made until
I'll
there's a second.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Then you
I
can.
know you, okay. So I would like to add to this, at the very end, following where 7 parking spaces are the minimum requirement, to allow for 6 parking spaces at a site more than.
Well, that's what I suggested, and you said
Well,
no.
you have to think about these things, John.
Okay.
I mean, we need a discussion. I think that.
So it should say, with the condition
With
that,
the-
Okay, thank you.
so if she cannot meet that condition, then the
Yeah.
variance is null and void.
Yeah,
With the condition that 6 parking spaces be provided at a site not deed restricted, neither deed
I don't think you
restricted.
need to be
you don't
that
need to add
specific.
that, so,
Okay.
yeah.
The code office can take that up.
Yeah.
Well, what about 250 feet?
Well, we are giving them a variance for whatever distance they
Okay.
can find.
Now do we have to re-second?
Yeah, I'll re-second that.
Second.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you can re-second your own, okay.
I just, yes.
You can simply accept it as a friendly amendment.
Okay.
I didn't teach parliamentary procedure for
And
nothing.
when she seconds, that means she's agreeing, right? So she can change it then, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing you're here, Ed.
No, if it's an
Always.
amendment and is agreed to by the proposer and the seconder, then, and everyone considers it friendly, no one objects, then you can simply do it without having to go through a formal process of amending the original motion.
That makes sense.
Okay,
Okay,
Mr.
perfect.
Eschenbacher, you are okay with everything now?
No, repeat the condition.
Okay. Why don't you read the whole thing? Kay, would you like to read the whole thing?
Sure.
Surely
The
not.
appellant is, I mean,
How
I
about
move
the
to grant
last
variance.
part?
How about the last
All right,
part?
Last part, let's see.
From
With the
a,
condition that 6 parking spaces be provided,
off-site.
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 Yeah. And who seconded this last one?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Okay, now we have a motion. Now I feel better.
Well, I'm not sure that Ms. Alt would agree with the
Well, she
condition.
agreed, she was at the podium, she said she will look into it, right?
No, she didn't. She said it would take too long
No, 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 no,
No,
no.
no,
No, it
no.
would take too long if we,
to come back.
To come back,
Okay,
right.
okay, got it.
This seems like a
So we
reasonable
have on the
compromise.
record that you agree with the new motion, the version of it, right? Okay, very good. Exceptional circumstances. Well, this property is a classic example of having exceptional circumstances. Because of the topology, because of the, I mean, I was there, parking I don't think is really easily could be put in there. But with having off-site parking, that should be okay. Any other exceptional circumstances that you can argue?
That's enough.
Practical difficulty and undue hardship. The building requires some major repairs. So that's a practical difficulty. Preservation of equal property rights.
Well, we deal with these odd lots and older buildings constructed on odd lots all the time with exceptions. And so under those circumstances, I think that because of conditions we are.
Yeah, okay. Minimum variance, it is more minimum now than we started before, so, with the parking. Absence of detriment. I think this improvement will not only make the foundation and the structure better and probably safer, so there is no absence of detriment. Do you all agree?
Yes.
Not of a general nature.
No.
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 Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, we got 5-0. See, that parking did it.
Good luck on finding parking.
Again, you have a beautiful property in there, sitting up the hill. Yeah, yeah. It will be nice. We'll get some pictures from it.
Well done.
Okay. We have disposition of the meeting we had before on April 25, 2017. Ms. Krasinski, you have some comments to make on it?
Oh, right. I made a couple suggestions, and I apologize it was late. It was like today to Mr. Eschenbacher. And one of the things that concerned me in the minutes, and I tried to do the video, it was a note that I had written, was that the previous occupancy was for 6 individuals. They had two units with 2 occupants each. That was at 110, and then 110 and a half was 1 unit with 2 tenants. Anyways, there were 6 tenants previously. Under the new construction, this is case 1708V, the West Union Street property, that they were decreasing occupancy. And what the minutes said was that there were 3, I think one.
What Mr. Katowski said was there used to be 3 one-bedroom apartments, and it's going to be replaced by 1 4-bedroom apartment.
Right, but in real terms, I mean, even when you look in the code index of rental properties, they have a permit for 6.
But it doesn't matter what the real terms are, I have to report what Mr. Katowski said.
Okay, well, I thought he said that, but he also said that they were reducing the occupancy. And my only concern with this, Paul, is that I don't want it to look like they were increasing occupancy and we were giving them variances on parking. And I tried to look at the tape, but in the New City website, I couldn't control it. I had to go to my old saved streaming video to be able to control it, and then I didn't have enough time to look through all of it. But I thought he said to me, because I asked the question, will there be less occupants than before the changes? And he said yes. And I guess that's the part that I think is important to be in the minutes.
I'll review the video again.
Okay. I will too, Paul, just to make sure I'm not wrong, but.
It's not an important.
Okay, I wish we had more cases, but we are adjourned.